Okay, we're back. It's Nate Miller from DigiFX, and we are continuing to work on our instance levels here. I am jumping into a new instance level at this point. I know I said that earlier, but I always seem to find things I gotta tweak, and it's a never-ending thing. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward, and as you can see in front of us, we have a different level here. You have seen this in the past. This is the Sky Island level. Um, I was trying to figure out the flow for the demo itself. We're cutting out a lot of the geomap stuff, and I'm focusing mainly on the quest sequencing and events that take place to really show what we've built into the Oasis core itself. And uh, I had to figure out a way to kind of make everything flow together and like for events to lead into new events. And so originally I was having the first level, Palm Beach, go into deep sea, and then in that first level you'd find some kind of deep sea helmet. And I can show you what I'm talking about right here if I just point it up, pull up what I'm talking about. It should be somewhere around here. Here we go. Here's a the deep sea helmet we have here, and it was going to be an item that you would find or you'd craft based off of materials, and that would allow you to get down to the deep sea. But instead I changed it up a little bit, and I actually made this the third level. And so now in the Palm Island, if you go back and you were watching the other videos, we actually have a beanstalk that is in the portal itself. So you actually have to plant some seeds you find from burning down the thorns, which with some magical elements and items will create that beanstalk element, and then the portal itself just gets you to this level here. So that gets you up, and then on this level we're going to find some of the rare elements or something within these ruins that's going to allow you to build the helmet and get you down into the deep sea, which we'll show you at a later date. So my goal today is to do as little amount of work as I possibly can by starting over. I mean, obviously it's always work, but what I'm getting at is I don't necessarily want to recreate things I've created in prior uh, uh, instances here. So I'm going to take a lot of the elements I've built out and fine-tune within Palm Beach, which I spent the most time on that level so far by far, to try to recreate that aspect within this game itself. So for instance, I can tell you right now that we don't need our characters here yet because we're going to bring in a new Sully that has new stuff. So I'll ditch that. And also I'm noticing that our marketplace is kind of overlapping here, which means at some point it was moved. So I don't necessarily want to delete the entire game canvas because it has valuable stuff geared towards this level. Um, but if it's only one or two things, like for instance, all of this stuff seems like it's not specific to this level. It's very generic. It may make sense to just import the whole new game canvas again, along with the other stuff. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just going to look through, and you also notice how this stuff isn't in the same order as the other one. And once we get this all built out, the flow, I'm going to go in here and reorganize everything in the right order. Maybe create numeric values here so that it all flows and stacks and loads in the same time. Now, the way the game engine works is that it reads from the top down. So it'll execute this command, it'll look for scripts on this, execute those, and go top down like you would anything. So if you have something that needs to load first, for instance, the core manager, and it's in the bottom, that may affect the way it functions and loads. And so you gotta, at some point, I will have to organize that. And so usually all the managers, as you see, will be up top here. And as we go down, the stuff that's specific to the instance level will change. So what I got to figure out here is I got to figure out what purpose these other islands are here. And so when I originally created this level here, and I go into the scenes, the one thing I probably don't want to re-import is the scene objects, because that itself is very specific to this level and all the stuff in it, and that would be a lot of work and a lot of extra re-importing things here. But I do know that I do need to add, well, yes and no. I don't have to necessarily add another level here, because I've kind of created a portal. This is kind of already has the different instance uh, levels you can teleport to here. This is going to be a boss level, but I'm thinking from here we're going to have a whole separate level that floats around over here. So the very first thing I want to do here is just remind myself that this is the not the scene objects, and remember what we did in the last one, that I actually created a parent object and I changed this to a child object. Uh, but because we have a couple of different instances here, and because they're not really organized appropriately, you can see everything's kind of all over the place. Um, there is some work that needs to be done here, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. I'm going to focus more on adding the key elements that creates a game-like structure here for the Sky Island level. So I'm thinking out loud as I do this. So I want to make it so that when you get to the top of the beanstalk, you start off right here in this ruin. And I don't know if I should do it there or I should make it here and then maybe somehow make that this level have you get over here somehow. So how do we do that? How do we actually create a way for you to get over here? Well, there's a few ways. You can either teleport like we've been doing, or you can figure out a way to cross through some kind of bridge we create. But obviously with the style of this level, a wooden bridge in the sky wouldn't make sense. Having a vine-like bridge, I think, would be the way to do it. And even this right here is somewhat of a natural connection, but the question is, how do you make it actually flow and work with the level itself to where it seems natural and it doesn't seem cheesy and out of place? And that's obviously something I have to really consider right now when I'm building this out. So one thing I like to do when I first start conceptualizing new stuff is I like to go to the internet for what people have done in the world already. We all know games have been around for a long time, and so what I'll just say is I'll just Google a vine bridge, right? And we'll just see the styles at which people design stuff and create things. And this is a technique, like, see, even these are really cool right here to the vine bridges. It's actually like an actual thing. So the first step is, let's take a look at some cool vine bridges. Now obviously finding a 3D model of this would be awesome, because it would give us the gameplay feel we need for this level. However, I highly doubt anything like this is going to be available for free on the internet, and if there is something, it's going to cost a pretty penny. And sometimes people won't release very high-end proprietary 3D assets they create for games like this, because it's where it is already loses its value. So there's a lot of really cool in-depth 3D art here, I should say, sculptures or real-world stuff that if you could find 3D art for, would be amazing. Look at this one right here. This is something in Guinea. That's a very interesting bridge. It almost just, it's very hard to walk on. It's kind of what it's like when I was walking in Iceland. There's a skinny little trail like that. This is cool. A lot of really cool stuff here. A lot of good ideas. So you can see why Google is your friend in terms of idea creation, conceptualizing new 3D stuff, and just getting a feel for what the real world counterpart for a 3D asset could look like. I don't want anything too complex, and eventually, I guess I'll add is that as of now, there's no animation in terms of stuff appearing and pairing. I just toggles on and off, which is not what I necessarily wanted to do. Eventually, what I want to happen is I want to create animated. I want to add splines, they're called, and character or rigs to these assets to where you can have them grow and shrink, especially if they're plants or something that's lifelike that would grow in real time. So, unfortunately, a lot of the assets, like the thorns I have on the wall, those are just mesh out, so they just burn and disappear. But eventually, I want them to grow in and then maybe kind of die out. But that will require a lot of third-party compromising, bringing them into 3D programs like Maya, Cinema 4D, Blender, something that you can rig it and then actually create an animation sequence that you can attach to it and then play that based off a command in the game. And so that's down the road, maybe. That's maybe another version, like when you update the version to something that's a little bit more interactive, to just the basic functionings, states of how you want it to work here. So since we got some ideas from this, I'll keep that open for now, and I will just duplicate this real quick so I have the same search result, and I'll say, now let's type in 3D here and see if we get anything that comes up. There. So here we have a bridge that looks pretty cool. Let's just click on this and see how much they're asking for. $18 for that. So, is that worth $18? I think it's up to you to decide as a viewer, but just remember that all the assets add up. You could be spending thousands of dollars on stuff, but it also makes up for the fact if you have a 3D artist and they have to create all these things, which right now that would be me, to do it. So let's just check this thing out here. This one's $14, and this is actually aligned a little bit more with what we're trying to do. The challenge with this stuff, though, they're not that the distance of where they are. They're very small. This almost looks like Sketchfab. It looks like a clone site to that. Never heard of this flipnormals.com. What is this place? Whenever I find a new 3D site I like, the only curated high quality training resources by the world's best artists. Okay, well, let's add this to our Digi3D folder here. So we found a new one. So now that we found a few options on the internet, let's see what Sketchfab has for us. So 3D bridge, and I actually do have a wooden bridge I think we're going to use that I already own. Another thing I'm going to make sure it's downloadable, otherwise what's the point in finding it? So as you can imagine, there is all sorts of stuff that propagates on that, but nothing really that is aligned with what we want. Fine. Nada. Okay, so we'll go to Turbo Squid here, and we'll say 3D bridge. I don't necessarily have to type in 3D bridge in a 3D site because everything's 3D here, but so here I'll just type in Vine plus bridge, and look, it doesn't even actually save the 3D part of that. So this is nice. This is good. This is exactly what I want, but it's 25 bucks. Man. But this is a fine example of something that would be really nice for our level here. And I can tell you though, I'm not going to spend 25 bucks on that. Not when it's such a small thing. I'd spend $5 on that. So maybe down the road, if we accumulate some resources, we'll invest in stuff like this, but that's just way too expensive. And then on top of that, let's see what kind of format it is here. It's a 3D Studio Max, which is another thing I freaking hate, because I don't use 3D Studio Max. So if you're a game development company and you're using PowerPCs, you use 3D Studio Max, which is why it's what they're using. They're obviously gearing this towards the mainstream industry, but indie developer like myself is doing it differently. I use Cinema 4D in my and After Effects and Unity, stuff like that. So unfortunately, this is not going to do. And this is actually called a stone bridge here, but it's. Let's see if we can find. Now I think about it. Maybe I'm just the line is limiting our searches here. So what I like to do when I'm searching for stuff, I go to the images, and if I find something that aligns with what I'm looking for, I'll just go to the site that it's from and see if it's something I can grab. And really, I don't see any of this stuff aligning with us too much. So the last resort I always go to is a paid asset within the asset store, which usually you get a lot of good stuff because it is already geared towards a video game, versus the other stuff could be geared towards just a 3D animation video or something. So let's just type in bridge here. And there's free assets, so what I'll do is let's see what's free right now. So this is a great asset and it's free, but the problem is it's not really the kind of thing you'd find in the type of environment we're trying to create. And I don't know why this person puts their logo as the screenshot. Another thing that's dangerous is that when you have, oh, it's this thing. That's not correctly labeled. Another thing that's dangerous about stuff like this is when you have assets that have all this stuff, usually that can screw up your build. So I try to stay away from big asset packs like that. Usually a specific small pack, like a 3D object, will be good enough. This is good, but it's got steel, it's more rusty old industrial. So we'll keep on looking here and spend a couple more minutes before I resort to what I have, which I know will work pretty good. I have some bridges I have from a swamp level. This is nice. I kind of like this. But it's still a little bit too man-made for us. So that's also not going to work. How many you can sort by? It's weird. They should just make it 100 there. I don't know why they make it 96. I guess because it's a series of 3 or something. So, as you can see, it takes a little bit of time to find what you're looking for, but you can get lucky sometimes, and like I said, we found those thorns yesterday. It was really good, really good. And so this is the kind of stuff I would like. An aged, like, hanging bridge, right? Something that like looks like something I would attach. But I don't like purchasing that stuff if I'm not gonna 100% use it. And also if there's something similar that's free that you can just retexture better and just make it your own. Because sometimes you just need sometimes it's got the mesh and you just need to texture it better. And it looks like I already have this one. Didn't realize I had this. So this is cool, but again, a little bit too more man-made for us. I still feel like it's not what we want. So we'll go back to our scene and I'll show you what I have that I think will work here. first thing I'll do is I'll just search bridge in here, and you could sort this out by prefab versus all of the elements, because obviously anything that is here. So just a quick look at all the assets. You can see the kind of stuff I already have here. Okay, so there's a step. There. These are definitely not right. This is something I've used in the past game. So maybe it's not actually, I think this is it right here. This is the one I was thinking of. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to use probably. And what I can do is I can dress it up with vines. And so this is actually something I think I pieced together myself. Maybe not, it might be just be a prefab, but I'm pretty sure I made this for another level. Like I put these pieces together, or it can just be from an existing level I have here. But this, if we scale this up to be appropriate, and we add some vines to the kind of wrapped around it to weatherize it, or to show that it's been around for a while, I think this is our best bet, and we already have that. So last thing I'll do is I'll just go in here and see if there's anything different in here, and clearly that's not. And then I also want to go into my master assets, 3D packs. So I have 3D characters, 3D levels, and 3D models. 3D levels are packs I purchased or have found that I pull various items from. So the reason I don't separate them is because I don't want to screw up the demo scenes that showcase how they can be built out. You can sometimes just copy those in there and tweak them around, this Sky Island is actually a demo scene that I've tweaked a lot. I forget where I got it, to be honest. I've had it forever. And I've done a lot of stuff to make it not, but I've used a lot of the same stuff in here. But I know that I have a swamp pack here. And I know I have some stuff in here. So that's the bridge we're pulling it from. That was the one I was thinking of. But then also how you notice there are a lot of vine-like... Oh, there's also a wharf here. But I still like the arc that we get on this. And then, let's see what this thing is here. Let me just add that there. And then I'll zero this out. The reason why you want to child something is that it will reset the 0 point of... the 0 point. Or the point of origin, I guess you'd call it. And it makes it easier than trying to snap it in there. So that's obviously not going to sit there, but if we could somehow dress enough of this stuff into this, plus use some of the vines we have here, I think we can get this to actually look pretty good. And I want to stay away from using here's an all-in-one, and I don't ever recommend just dragging this in here because you can lose stuff that you're not going to use, but I will immediately delete it. So you can see everything that this pack includes. And what are these right here? These are what I'm using. I think those are... And sometimes because I have it locked, I have to just toggle through it. So these are... What are they calling those? Okay, so those are the... Those are the ones that I'm using here. Okay, so that's another good one that we can use. So what we'll do is we'll just... It's not going to let me do that, is it? Yeah. I always forget. It's going to be like... It's going to get mad at me. Unity has an issue where it like gives you a warning sign, right? And so I can't. There's a lot of stuff open right now. Okay, I get it. Now where's the fucking... There we go. So sometimes you have to like open something else for it to work. So let's not mess with that. But let's go ahead and pull out our other vines here. Since we already have vertical out there, you know, let's just pull out the horizontal too, because I don't really know which one I want. And again, we are in our staging area. This is a little bit backwards because the other one, as you know, it says the core on top, this one the staging on top. But as long as this stuff is separated from the main build, we're okay. We just don't want to mess with this stuff down here. Okay, so we're also, make sure we're on the right level, save that out. And because it's in the staging area, I can just drag it in. It doesn't matter where it ends up, as long as I don't, and I can't touch it. See, I can't grab anything, which is good. I prefer that. So, let me just think real quick before we decide that's what we're going to use here, about the different stuff that could possibly have. Okay, so this is the floating island that we're using, I think, right? That's the one? What's that? Oh no, this is different. This is a very cartoony asset. There's nothing I would really want to use in this. You can see it's very, it's like a fantasy asset. It's cool though, and so I keep it. Okay, so we got that. The ruins, see, that should be moved because that's not anything important for us. Also, I don't like it when people make their name as the asset thing. That's freaking stupid. Okay, so Toby, for somebody who puts their name, you need to organize your shit better. Alright, so here we're just gonna see what we got here. We have all kinds of cool stuff probably in here. And really, you could spend a whole day just sorting through stuff and putting it in, and I have done a lot of this in my, oh, there we go, there's a lot of bridges. Docks. So the only thing with the docks, they don't have the arc that we were going for, so that's the only problem with those. So this surprisingly has a lot of good stuff in here. And so again, another way you can, the reason why I don't always like to search for stuff this way is because sometimes people don't create prefabs, they just have models. Like these are prefabs, but if you have something that's really cool but it's only an FBX and on a prefab, you can't find it. So it kind of sucks, you know? Like, I guess you can go to all models and that solves that. But then you eventually want to make a prefab for it and you don't want to reuse it twice. So let's just go through this real quick and see if there's anything that sticks out to us, because I don't honestly know. I don't know all the, see how many like axes I have here. I don't know all the assets I have in this game, or this collect stuff as I go. There's a lot of really cool structures you can use, but really those should be saved for a separate level itself. And then a lot of this stuff is just like other assets of like with animations attached, which you would never want to use. But you can also find stuff that will generate cool concepts and ideas. Like for instance, this bone pile here. I was looking for a bone the other day, and then I can go. I was looking for something like this the other day, and this would have been really good for me. And so sometimes you just have to look. But as you can see, well, I also screwed that up. I didn't. As you can see that not everything shows up, and your best bet is to actually go in the folders where it's saved and look in specific things, and then when you find something you really like these are the I actually purchased a bunch of vines, and these are also something that I will use probably in this setup right here, in this bridge setup we got here. And let's just make it a little easier for ourselves. Let's turn off everything that isn't supposed to be shown here. I'm still not sure why this level's kind of sluggish compared to the other one. So I have it turned off. This is a really awesome asset that I found on the internet, but it's from a game and you can't use it. But I actually went out and purchased different stuff, but I don't know, I forget what game this is from, to be honest, but I have a lot of, when I was learning how to do this, I found a lot of assets that were actually stripped from previous games in the past, and I learned a lot about character animation within video games here. I will say that his leaf texture is wrong. That should be alpha. It shouldn't have that black there, but this the animation on this thing's amazing. And I've used this setup in After Effects to light this and make it like cinema quality, and it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good, but unfortunately, I'll never be able to use it. So, just there. We'll still keep it. All right. So as you can see, a lot of cool stuff in here. And you also want to make sure that if you find something cool, you want to always check if there's a prefab counterpart to it, because sometimes you'll find one that's of FBX and they save out a prefab model that holds the FBX as like it kind of wraps another layer around it, and you can make your own prefab off the FBX, but then you get redundant models, and it makes the build bigger if you have two different ones in there, and it's not efficient. And because I'm gearing all of this stuff only really towards mobile development, I can create shaders and materials that are only mobile friendly. I don't have to worry about desktop or that aspect of it. But you can also borrow materials. Like for this thing, I would actually take this texture and I would put it on something else if I wanted that gold texture there. So you can share stuff around, but just note that if you change a shader or material attributes, it affects that material across the board other places. Alright, so I don't think there's anything better than what we have already here. It all seems to be, this is something I downloaded yesterday that I was going to add in. It's huge, and let's see if it has any animation real quick. It says it has an animator on it. So because my Palm Beach level is the control for all the UI elements, I'm probably going to have to spend some time making sure that everything I bring into this one aligns and matches with that. Okay, so even though it has an animator on it, you see it's clearly not doing anything, so there's not rigged. It's a mesh object. But just to double check to make sure that that's true, I'll select it. I will go in here and I can kind of explore, and you can see that there's two level of details, and one is going to be detailed while the other one isn't, and you can just tell by that one's the more detailed one there. It's a 0.5 they call it. Okay, so we have our bridge, and what I want to do now is I want to pull out those other vines I was talking about. And again, I can pull them. I have a lot of them already in other scenes I can reuse. But because I think I already have them updated, I can just re-pull them from the models. So I think I have what's called a vine pack somewhere. So maybe under V. The best way to do something if you don't know where it is to go here, figure out, it's a force vine pack, there we go. And I do remember these had LODs on them, and I did delete those for the sake of only doing mobile. So unfortunately with this one, you have to delete a lot of these extras just to save space. Well, you'll notice this is a fine example of where there are only FBXs here. There's no prefabs. So that means if you use this, you're using the original model, and that's usually not what you want to do. You usually want to make a prefab of the original model and then use that. So unfortunately, I don't know if we have an option, but there's a lot of good stuff here, and this will also give our bridge that like this one right here, like stuff like this hanging off of it will make it look like it's very old. And then as you zoom out, you can see they will be called out, but it's overkill for us. We don't want that. So here's what I'm going to do instead, just to save myself from doing something I already did. These vines may not work with the ones I'm about to use, but because these look pretty low poly. So I'm going to save this out, and I'm going to go into my faithful bridge build settings manager here. I'm going to go all the way down to my lava chamber one, which I've already done a bunch of work on. And okay, so it's probably asking if I want to save it like usual. Oh, it's not, it's just not in view. So it's interesting how all of these, how this is not centered anymore. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't matter. Scene objects, zoom in of our lava chamber here. And on this one, you see I already have some vines I'm using. Some vines back here. And so what I'll do here is I'm going to go into non-collectibles, and I'm going to go into this, and look at that. So now I have all the vines that I need already optimized for mobile here. So I'll just copy this entire thing, and I will go back into our Sky Island Live here, and I got to delete these portals into the build. They're not important anymore for us. And it's probably asking if I want to save. No, don't want to save. Okay. So what's interesting is that when you zoom, it keeps the position of where you were. So the game or the scene camera that you use throughout the different scenes stays in the same place, which is why what was in front of us isn't in front of us anymore. So to fix that, you just go to our bridge here, and then you zoom in front of that. Okay, so first things first, let's zero everything out. See what it looks like zeroed out. Okay. And again, we're just going to model this in the level, but it is recommended to usually not do that. You usually don't want to model something in a game level. You want to have like a staging level that you, but I'm just using a staging area within the level because I'm pretty careful about what I'm doing here. But I wouldn't, if I were to have somebody come on that doesn't really know what they're doing, I wouldn't even let them touch these levels. Okay, so we have that, and I forgot, I need to edit, paste. We got our vines, and you can see the proportional difference in size here. So I think actually before I even start messing with this bad boy, let's bring up the staging. Let's turn these off. Let's also turn off our lineage, which I don't know if that's a different language for vine or if that's just a different name for some kind of vine or what that means. Let's just Google that real quick. Sometimes you do different languages here. Line meaning. Oh, okay, so it's a woody climbing plant that hangs from trees. Oh, interesting. Alright, so that is a actual terminology that's English. It's just a specific type of vine that you can climb on, which is interesting. So we want to try to get this proportionally correct in terms of the scale here, because this level is the right size. It's all kind of been sized already, so I don't want to mess with the levels. I want to mess with the bridge and let the bridge match the level here. So make sure it's on world axis, and you can see how small this little bridge is, which is why those vines look so big. So scale it up, and unfortunately, because these are all, so usually in 3D programs what you can do is you can set the pivot point, and I'm not sure if Unity allows you to change the pivot here, because usually what you have to do is just zero out this stuff, and then by doing that you create a pivot point that matches that one, right? And so, but I don't think that is going to fix that here. We can see how offset it is, though. Let me just search for that real quick, see if there's a solution to changing the pivot point in Unity here. So Unity change pivot point. Select the object that you want to set the pivot of. Click Pro Builderize in the Pro Builder window. Move the, okay, so just wanted to update this with a simple solution that now exists since I was looking for the information as well as kept going around. Okay, so you actually need an asset to do this. And I've heard of Pro Builder before. I just don't think I have it here. Okay, well, it's top rated and it's free and it's 5 stars, so it'd be foolish not to include that. Oh, shit. You can see right there. I actually don't want to do it this way. So it says this download version 2.0 only, install via package manager Unity. Alright, so when something gets adopted in Unity, you gotta go in here and then it's like what I've learned. So I get this migration thing here. Pro Builder, there it is. And let's install that. So one thing I installed that screwed up my build that I'm not even using is this lightweight this render pipeline. It was cool for a minute, but then it really messed up my build, so I disabled it. So I might actually in the core render pipeline library. Okay, what do we got here? Alright, building in. I always love when I add a new module package and it doesn't screw up my build. It's always nice. So I'm actually going to uninstall the render pipeline here for now. I don't think it's hurting anything, but it did screw up a lot of my textures. Oh, great, so now, okay, so it's only checking levels, or is it checking all my assets? If it checks all my assets, it's going to take a freaking while. Okay, so it looks like this is just going to scan all my assets. So instead of making everybody sit here and wait, I'm gonna come back when it's done. I don't know how to use Pro Builder yet. Yeah, okay. So, okay, so I'm gonna just stop for a second and come back when this is done.